we're never going to touch on it in any episode if we don't do it this week. So we probably should cover what happened with Alti, which I think is the first time we've even mentioned it on this channel because, I mean, just neither of us were interested in it. But it is a cautionary tale, so we'll talk about this real quick. So 0x Steph, obviously Steph, the man who created the Staker app for Hex back in the day, which I loved, by the way. I know you did too, Ewok, and I think pretty much universally everybody did in the ecosystem. The original Staker app was awesome. To this day, I think it was the best mechanism that we've ever had created to track hex stakes. And basically since version 2 got released, which was not good and had all kind of jankiness to it, really haven't had anything as good as it since. Hex Scout is decent, but that original Staker app I thought was terrific. So Steph did a good service by doing that. But, you know, I don't even know the timeline here. I'm going to end up talking out of turn. So I don't want to get everything right on whenever he initially launched this project. I couldn't tell you one thing about the white paper, what it's supposed to do, nothing about it. But he went on like a few channels and was talking about this thing, whatever it did on Ethereum, I believe. And, you know, it's, I guess all I can really talk about is I was never even perked up or interested in it because it's hard for me to tell you why, because, you know, I mean, the receipts are there. If you look back on our channel, we talked about Zen whenever it was going on in October of what, I guess that would have been like 2022 at this point, which is pretty crazy. And I was kind of intrigued with what Jack was doing at that time and what Zen was all about and stuff like that. And I definitely like minted some wallets, and I know you did a few. And I mean, there's plenty of people within the ecosystem that didn't transition. I don't know if I should use that word, but you know, went into Zen.
Careful.
Yeah. But I mean, there weren't so many people that were just like, oh, I'm a Zen maxi now. I remember like Jim Rat Crypto and that show was like turning into that and everything. Trevon was into it for a while, whatever. He does his own thing. But it became a thing for a little while. And I think it was the timing of it. I think what Jack did at that time was it was like, and Jack Levins, who I'm talking about, he capitalized on the bottom of the bear market. I mean, that was literally like a month out from FTX happening and stuff like that. There was nothing going on. Hex was plummeting. So it was like, oh, what's this ex-Googler guy? Let's check this out. You know, we were kind of looking into it and stuff. So I guess just from me, all I can do is talk about myself personally. The only reason I think I had no interest in this is because there's just way too much more interesting things going on right now, and I'm really intrigued by Pulse Chain. Whereas during like the Zen time, which I'm only comparing them because they're things that are kind of DeFi related that, you know, siphon people from the Hex community and stuff. But this just didn't intrigue me because there's so much better stuff going on right now. So that's all really I can say. Obviously, the story ends up that this thing is live for 4 days before the official Twitter account of Alti tweets that there is a critical flaw. Yeah, there's the tweet. Alti V1 is a failed experiment, which a lot of people had an issue with that word. The tokenomics are critically flawed, likely causing the price to decline indefinitely. Where Jack Levin should have wrote this tweet a few years ago. We strongly advise against depositing or buying Alti any further. You know, that's nice. I don't want to read all 9 of these. I don't know if there's anything. Yeah, because I don't even know how the thing works, so it's not really. You know, I don't know if there's a point really reading any of this, but I did.
Well, we can tell why. Let's tell why. And I think this number 4 is probably the big reason, and it was one of the things that caused it to fail. And the slippage protection in the contract was designed to shield the pump pool from MEV attacks, and ironically, which prevented pumps from triggering at low prices. So it left it stuck in what they called a downward spiral because the pump pool money that was locked in the contract never deployed because people were minting. They were getting such a decent price minting it and selling it that it couldn't protect itself from engaging the pump pool. Which, like he said, left it in a downward spiral. As a result, even deposits lose appeal. So that was what triggered it. Anyway, if you want to go ahead and...
Well, I knew there were some notes that I took out of it whenever I actually read it. Yeah, deposit incentives were so strong that people will never buy it on the open market. Again, that kind of sounds like Zen. People didn't want
Right.
to actually buy it. Negative feedback loop that causes deposits to even be worthless. Despite thorough tests, audits, we failed to notice this flaw. Working on a solution. Yeah, I don't know what solution they would be working on for people at this point. But essentially, there's also like $7 million of Ethereum that's just locked up in some wallet now
Yes,
forever.
sir.
Yeah,
And at $3,300,
right.
$7 million, right? So imagine when that goes to 20,000,
20
whatever it
20
may
million.
go.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, you've got that. So one of the things that I did want to bring up, and the reason, you said why you weren't interested in this, and one of the reasons why I wasn't interested, and we just never really even talked about it, were two big things, right? I loved Staker app as well. It was one of the things where, actually Hex.live was one of the first things that came out that talked about the sharks and the dolphins and the whales and the squids and all that stuff. They were the creators of that whole thing. And Staker app was really cool because it ranked you. It got to show you different wallets. You could monitor things easily. You could use it as an onboarding tool. People could get in. You could do your stakes right there. And then when version 2 went, which we thought was kind of sideways, it kind of lost the plot. There were a lot of people that, let's move forward. Once they decided to stop supporting it, and kind of threw up a website and said, "Here you go, you're on your own." That was my first really worrisome thing about Steph, because I know he's an intelligent guy. He's very smart. And so that was red flag number 1. Red flag number 2 was there was a referral system with Staker as well that people never got paid for 2 years. And I think finally when Steph was trying to close the door, he finally ended up paying out some of the bigger people that had made some decent money with it. But by then it was too little too late. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was just one of those things that I felt like it was being done just to save face, so that people can't say that I didn't follow through. So, 2 red flags as with anything is enough for me. Now, I will say, and I'm going to tie this kind of what? Are you
Not
laughing at
you.
me?
A comment.
Oh,
A comment.
okay,
Go
okay.
ahead.
One of the things that I am worried about is a reload, right? Let's come out with a second version of this. We think
That's
we
pretty
made it.
much what I just put on the screen. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, kind
okay,
of. Yeah.
okay. So I'm going to urge strongly against any kind of reload when something fails and they try to fix it and whatnot. I'm going to tie this back. We're going to go back to the early Hex days, when Hex was being developed, and this was more so in the Telegram channels, and ideas were being passed around by a lot of people. There was the early Hex chat. I think there were probably only 3,000, 5,000 people in it at this time.
Right.
And it's kind of when Dev Kyle made his appearance, right? And told Richard and said, "Hey, I think there's a problem with what you want to do. I ran some models, and I think there's a flaw. I think the early or recurring short stakers are going to outweigh your long stakers. And if your goal is to have long-term commitment, there would be no point. You're kind of defeating the purpose by allowing these guys to do short rolling stakes. They're going to outperform." And that's when the whole T-share thing came into play. So my point is, no matter how smart you are, no matter how much thought you've put into this, there will be someone smart out there that can probably figure out these things. And I don't know what kind of team Steph had, but when you had that many people looking at it in the Telegram, there was a couple smart people out there that said, "Hey, there's an issue. Let's fix it."
Mhm.
And again, that's when the T-share system was created. So apparently there wasn't a whole lot of feedback with it. Yes, they found this problem, But what if there are other problems? Like, you know, you found the one critical flaw. There might be more than one, because audits aren't going to find test simulation, real life type things, right? They're not gonna, if there is a run on people selling, your audit isn't going to tell you that there's a problem. They're only going to tell you if the code is bad, or if it doesn't work, or if there's a backdoor or admin keys when you say there aren't, things like that. So yeah, I just, I would strongly recommend anybody stay away from any kind of reload of a V2. And you know, I think we've fixed it, but still you've got $7 million out there now that can't be touched. And I know the Alti folks were caught just the other day dumping a bunch as well of whatever was remaining to try to soak up some liquidity that was out there. So anyway, that's my point. Like I said, I kind of twist it back to the early hex days, where you need as many eyes and intelligent people looking at this stuff. And you know, Steph said it was his life's work. Again, how many people were working on it? Was he the only one coding it? You know, we'll never know, or I don't really even want to know at this point. But it was missed, and I don't know. I don't know if it was rushed or just careless, or you know, or what it was. I don't like to accuse anybody of anything intentional. I don't think it was intentional at all.
I don't really either. I don't
think it was malicious at all either. And I do commend them for coming out as early as they did, saying that, hey, we found a flaw. Please don't put any more money into it. Commendable, you know, because these guys, a lot of these guys took a long time to try and build a reputation. I mean, I know Silver the Antidote was another one that was pushing this. He was very into it. He was supporting Steph along the way. These guys build a reputation for years and years and get followers. And then when you get people wrecked, man, it can take as little as hours to destroy your reputation.
Yeah.
So it's just something you really have to be careful of. And you know, that's why we're in an odd position to talk about new things, and you think about it. And you know, the last thing we want to do is get any of our followers wrecked. You know, everybody's down enough as it is, just buying core things. Nothing has happened where there's been rug pulls or flaws in code or anything like that. But you know, again, it's a quite the responsibility that we have talking about things.
One thing I will say, and this is by no means like defending Steph or Alti or anything. Like I said, I wasn't really interested in it, and you weren't either. But some of the people that are like dunking on everybody and showing the receipts of people who were in on it or whatever. I mean, it's one thing. You also have to be smart. Like, for example, Zen. Like, I would call my experience with it horrible. You know, I mean, there's I'm not going to call Jack a failure or what he did a failure yet, because whatever, who cares? But you know, I mean, frankly, I mean, like, you could also call what you've gotten so far in Pulse Chain a failure in terms of like the price action, you know, not in terms of the price. And I'm not saying that it is. I'm just saying that, like, when it comes to things like Alti, Zen, little things like that pop up, whatever it may be that catches your eye, do what I imagine a guy like Corey Geary did, who I think he actually interviewed Steph. I'm pretty sure he did, and got in on it. Do you think Corey Geary put in an overwhelmingly significant portion of his wealth into this thing? You know, no, I don't think so. He's not a dumb guy.
I hope not.
Well, and even based off his reaction from it, I could tell he's like, whatever. But the people that did do that, what the hell are you doing? I mean, like, it's okay to dabble. Like, again, I admit it. I mean, I did with Zen. I know Randy Hilarski talked about doing it with Zen. You know, a number of people did. But you still have to protect yourself. And if you want to mess around with stuff like that pops up, that's totally fine. It's almost like with meme coins and stuff, or different things that you experiment with. That's fine. But just be very careful with it. That's all. Yeah. And obviously Richard had a tweet on presumably the Alti stuff. He didn't, of course, say what he was talking about, but yeah, you just have to be careful out here, especially now. I mean, we're in what's going to be the biggest scam year overall with things popping up. You just have
Yeah.
to be careful. Now, again,
And
not
that,
saying that Alti was a scam, like you said. I think it just
yeah.
failed and they missed it. Yeah.
Well, and again, that was the problem. And that was one of the things that Richard mentioned was when you sell good things to buy bad things, it almost amplifies and doubles the pain. So, yeah, so there's that. So, again, if you throw like DGen Moonboy here says, I got $1.06 in my Zen account.
Right.
If you throw a couple bucks and you pay for a couple wallets to mint them, what do you got? 20, 30 bucks, maybe
Yeah.
50 bucks.
Yeah.
I don't think I spent too much more than that. Maybe a little bit, but not much. And it was all fresh capital. So that is the one lesson to, whereas if you're going to play with these new protocols or whatever, please use fresh capital. Don't try to sell something to make a great move, because you get double kicked in the balls if your other thing that you sold goes way up and that one goes, kaput. So
Yeah.